Okay, everyone. Hello and welcome to Interviewing in the Face of COVID, how to interview like a star in the face of chaos. My name is Sarah, and I'm very excited to see you at the 2020 Love Conference, hosted by the Office of Leadership Development, sponsored by Xfinity and Coca-Cola, and in partnership with the Wellness Resource Center and Career Center. I'm very pleased to introduce Jen Fry. So I'm going to hand this over to Jen to introduce herself.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I also appreciate the Love Conference for allowing me to chat with you all about something that I'm pretty passionate about. So to kind of give you an idea of who I am, so my name is Jen Fry, and I run Jen Fry Talks. Jen Fry Talks is a social justice firm that focuses on educating and empowering those within athletics. And I know you're probably asking, like, okay, we're not in athletics, and we're not talking about social justice. I get that. But that kind of starts my story. I was a college volleyball coach for about 15 years. And I decided about a year or two before that I really wanted to get in diversity and inclusion. So with that, I literally decided to quit coaching and jump into this DEI world. I had no clue about it. And during that time, I was kind of using an old resume from athletics. And I literally had I got no interviews, none, zip zero. And I went to a conference, and now a friend of mine looked at my resume, and I was like, well, what's wrong with it? And she was pretty much like, girl, everything. Like, you need to just burn this piece of paper up and start from the ground up. And that's what I did. And I kind of used the way the method of setting up her resume. And I had, within 3 months, about 25 job interviews. And so with those job interviews, I had to really learn how to interview well. And let me tell you, I had some crash and burn interviews. Like, ones where midway through the interview, I just wanted to be like, you know what? Can we just end this? Because I know I'm just terrible right now, and I know you're not going to hire me. So can we just cut it and move on? And so through that, I kind of learned the ins and outs of interviewing, and to kind of give you people and even you some ideas of the best ways to interview. And so for me, even though that this is kind of the webinar format, I'm big into question answers and dialogue. So if you have questions, please put them on there, because that helps me. I want to make sure that when you come out of this webinar, you're like, I at least have a few things that I know are going to help me into the future, right? That's kind of my goal. So there's no dumb question. Literally, I want you to ask all and every question. And so from that, kind of here are our objectives, if you must, that we're going to look at. The first is we're going to look at how to respond to emails. What is professional during job Zoom interviews? What does in-person look like? And just miscellaneous. Like, those are the things that we are going to hit on today. Can you get a sample resume? Let me think about that, honestly. And also, the problem with that is you have to, here's like a segue, okay? I think it's ISA. So here's the one thing to understand is that different professions have different resumes. So that's why I'm like, I'm hesitant, because the resume format is very different depending on the profession, right? Athletics likes a bullet point resume. Higher ed likes a paragraph type of resume. So that's the one thing, when you're writing resumes, you have to understand that there's not a one size fits all. To me, that's the most harmful thing. There's not a one size fits all, and you can't do a generic resume. Okay? So that's the biggest thing, is that you can't have like a generic resume that fits everything. You have to really dial it in based on the job description language. Because most people think like, okay, I'm interviewing for a diversity inclusion job, and I can just write the same thing for everything. But some people might say diversity, some people might say inclusion, some people might say equity, some people might say a whole bunch of stuff. And understand that whatever's in the job description is the language that you want to use. So that's kind of the things that we're going to talk about. So the first thing is emails, right? You send in your resume, you get the interview, or you get the email back saying, ta-da, welcome, we want interview you for a job. So here are some of the things that we have to think about with that. The first thing is that when you're responding, ask for resume, like A, do they give you different times to interview? Or B, are they asking you for different times? So that's like a really important thing right off the bat. You know, if they're saying, hey, we'd love for you to interview, then is it like, these are the days we have open? Or can you give us a select amount of dates and times? And so when they do that, you're going to need to give them maybe 4, 5, 6 times and dates to adequately help them out. The next thing is when they do ask you to interview, inside the email should be telling you your date, your time, the time zone, and then the length of the interview, right? Those are really critical things to be thinking about, because I can't tell you how many people have missed interviews because the time zone was not present, and maybe it was a East Coast group and they wanted to interview someone on the West Coast. And so when you do that, you have to be acknowledging that there's that 3-hour time difference, right? And so it's one of those things of, if they say, we'd love for you to interview at 12 p.m., you have to acknowledge, okay, is this East Coast time? Is this Pacific Standard Time? Because I literally have had friends who have logged in at 3:30 and are waiting for the interview, and they met 3:30 their time, which is 6:30 East Coast time. So those type of things are really important to be asking questions about. Also asking questions about the login information, right? Are you going to be the one setting up the call? Are they setting up the call? What's the format that the call's on? Those are really, really important things to be thinking about whenever you're responding to those interviews, because many times we don't think about that. Does anyone have any questions regarding kind of this idea? I want to kind of give you time for that. You can put it in the chat box or the Q&A. Okay. So yeah, so I think it's really important also to make sure that you're responding literally to the correct person. You know, you want to make sure you're saying, hi, you know, thank you, Jane, or however they end the email is usually the most appropriate way to begin your email. Many times people don't think about that, you know, so if they end their email with Dr. Frank, then you want to make sure to respond to them saying, hi, Dr. Frank, thank you for your response. You know, these are the dates and times I have available. You know, these are the questions I have, you know, what time zone, what length, and XYZ. Because again, you don't want to be scrambling for that information after the fact. Also, the login information, once they send that to you, you need to save it in your calendar. So save it with the date, save the login information. Because there's nothing worse than you're all ready to go and you're literally trying to hunt for this login information. It's making you anxious because you can't remember what email it was in, who sent it, and you're trying to hunt for it and you're potentially late. So it's really important to save all that in your calendar. The next thing is kind of when we're talking about Zoom and what that means. And this is for, you've got the interview, they've scheduled the time. Also make sure that when they send you the date and time, that you send them back a confirmation email. Hi, Dr. Frank, thank you. I look forward to chatting with you on November 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Respond back with that email because it's important that you're confirming it. Because I've had people who, when I sent the confirmation email, they've meant, oh, I meant 12 p.m. Pacific time, which is 3 p.m. your time. So that's why it's really important that you, once you get the information, you also send the confirmation email. You know, I've been on search committees where one of the things that they've said was that we never received a confirmation email, so I don't even know if they're going to be on the email, or excuse me, on the call. And then right away they're like, they don't confirm. That's a check against them. So it's really important that you send that confirmation email so that they know that you're on there and you're prepared. So the next thing is, congratulations, you have the email. Now they're telling you you're either on Skype, Zoom, or WebEx, whichever one it is. And so the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a really good location. So you want to make sure, like, you can see, like, in my background right here, you can see my refrigerator and stuff like that. So what I would tend to do is I put up these curtains. And so now I have an appropriate background, right? So is there something that you literally can throw curtains up so that now they don't see that? You know, what are the pictures, kind of what's the artwork? And this is also hard because, like, this is also some information pre-COVID. I feel like current COVID is like, psh, whatever, just make sure your background looks okay, right? So it's one of those things of making sure you have a good background, so that it's not distracting. You know, it might be, say I don't know, you have a roommate who's there and your roommate's like walking around behind you. You don't want that to happen, right? So making sure that you have a background. I've also been in situations where I've interviewed where I did not want, say I was at a current job and on my lunch break, I was interviewing for a job or something, and I didn't want them to see the background around me because they might notice it. I literally sat on the ground and put my my laptop on the table. So with that, it literally was like a bookcase, and you couldn't really tell what it was. So don't be afraid to do that. But like I would say beforehand, days before, once you get the email for the interview, that you need to search around wherever you're at and what is an appropriate background. So thinking about that. Also, you want something that you can lay a notepad on, write stuff. You don't really want to have it on your knees because then when you're talking and you're nervous, it might be moving like that, and you don't want that. So really, like, checking out that location, that's going to be good. You know, if you have pets, I'll get to that in a second, but like location is the number one thing. The second thing is lighting. You know, you don't want it to be where it's really dark and they can't see you. Also kind of wipe off your camera, because there have been so many times, like, I've been talking to someone and it's super fuzzy because I haven't wiped it off. So wipe it off to make sure it's really clear, and that the lighting is good around you. And even if you need to, let me move this. Oh, here it is. I have this lighting thing. It was like 15 or 20 bucks on Amazon. And it does that brightness. So it gives you just a little more brightness if you need it. It's a $20 light and it's batteries. So if you need to, you can it's better than the ones that you have to plug in, because I don't know about you, but I always forget to charge them. So the batteries is a really good thing to have for this one. And I think you can also clip it onto like your phone if you need to and be like, pow. So it's also good if you like taking selfies that have really good light, right? So that's one thing. Also, like I said, the background, making sure it's good. You know, I think now it really doesn't matter if you have like family pictures and stuff in the background. You know, before they would tell you to have a blank wall and that type of thing. But I mean, what does it matter? You know, if you have pictures of loved ones, like, I mean, sometimes when I did my e-learning series, I used that background right there because I thought it was really cool, right? Or, I mean, I have that background over there in the corner. So, I mean, background, it is what it is. If you have something interesting, it also might be something that they can talk about. You know, I've been on Zoom calls where people have been like, what's that art back there? And I get to shout out one of my friends who's a great artist. So, you know, that type of thing doesn't matter. I think animals is always a really interesting one. And I say that because, you know, I have a cat. So this right here is Fish. And many times Fish is like jumping all over me. Like there literally isn't a time when Fish isn't jumping on me, and except when he's snoozing like that. And so I think, you know, many times, especially if you have a dog and a dog that like likes to whine, or Fish, he's a big whiner, of thinking about maybe giving him like a toy or something to eat, something so that they are outside whining, not whining. Also, you don't want them like, whenever I'm at the table and I'm doing stuff, Fish loves to weave through my feet and like meow. And I don't want him doing that if I'm doing something really important. So thinking of ways like, how can I keep him out of the way? So thinking about that, if you have dogs that like to bark, if you have cats that like to whine, what can you do to get them out of the way? Maybe even if it's a thing of you starting to prep them, like leaving them like in your bedroom, just locked there for like an hour, just so they can get used to it. Because if I tried to do that immediately right before a call with Fish, he would be like jumping on the door and just being super annoying. So thinking about that type of thing, I think is really important when you're doing these interviews, because I don't think that, there's nothing more annoying than like hearing the dog sitting there barking the whole time during the interview. And it's not something that reflects on you, but I think it just will get people who are interviewing you, they'll just become annoyed, right? With the dog, with the whining of the animal. So thinking about beforehand, how can you have them not there? Also, if like you have a friend, a parent, someone at home that maybe can take the dog for a walk or play with the animal while you're interviewing, I think that's really important. The next thing is your outfit. And this is, I think, when we talk about this idea of professionalism and what is professionalism, and the fact that it's like this Eurocentric view. I think professionalism, we have to think of it in the context, I believe, of A, what's comfortable for you, and then B, what is not changing yourself, right? Because I think sometimes what we tend to do is we tend to like change ourselves into like, straightening hair, hiding tattoos, all these things that when we come to the very first, when we come to our first day at work, we're a completely different person. So I think for you is thinking of what is a really good outfit for you to wear that is a confidence builder, that shows that you're strong, and they would maybe deem as professional. So I think that those are important things to think about with your outfit. Also, you'll want to wear like the whole outfit. Sometimes people might just wear the shirt and have on pajama pants. Like right now, majority of the time I wear either running shorts or pajama shorts. I'm not even gonna lie, on all my webinars, because I'm like, we need to be comfortable with this. But I mean, I think the thing is that if you're wearing the whole outfit, like you could tell, because you can tell sometimes when people aren't wearing outfits that are like just the top. And so for that, of wearing an outfit that's comfortable, that also speaks confidence into you. Friends that are on right now, let me see in the chat, what are some of your confident outfits? A blouse? Okay, Cheryl. Okay. What type of blouse? Something that buttons up, something that you put over your shoulder? What type? Okay, Haley, a cute sweater. Okay. A shirt that isn't see-through when you buy it? Absolutely. Please check on that. Please do. Yep. Like a V-neck flower. Okay, awesome. Yep. Okay. Haley, do you sweat a lot? Because when I get interviewing, I start to sweat a ton. So do you find in the sweater that you start to sweat a lot? Because I'm like armpits, like, whoo, I'm sweating a ton. A dress that fits well. Yep, Brandy. Okay. A dress shirt that fits well. Yeah, absolutely. One thing I like to do whenever I put on a shirt, especially a nice shirt, is kind of do this. Because if I can't fully like move and groove without it, then I'm probably going to switch out of it. Because many times, right, we don't try it on. It might like gape here, the buttons, or if we do this, like half of it comes up to our neck, or we have to keep pulling it down. So absolutely those type of things, and do like all these movements. When you try it on to buy it, when you try it on, before the day before, do all this stuff. Like, what if I had to move and groove and all these things, and how would it fit? That to me is really important to do that. And also, like, find your interview outfit like the day before, right? 2 days before, because that's really important. Because you don't want to try on something the 20 minutes before and you realize that it doesn't fit well, it's see-through, any of those type of things. It's the worst, because again, then you want to make sure that everything you do keeps you low anxiety. Like that to me is the number one thing. What can keep me low anxiety so that I can interview well? And doing that means that I have, checked my location to make sure it's a good location to interview, that I have something I can write on. Like I have this really cool table I bought from Home Goods, and it has outlets, and it is big enough to put my laptop in and write if I need to. So that's really good. Also, what's the lighting like? I have multiple lights in my house, but if I need to, I bring in the little light to make sure that I'm well lit and not in the dark when interviewing. I make sure my background, I want it to be whatever it is, even if that means that I am sitting on the floor with, this little table and my back is to my door, then that's so be it, right? I have, made sure that my animal is either taken care of or in a room, is eating, is sleeping, whatever it is, to make sure that they're not going to be a pest and nuisance. In terms of also, oh, I forgot people, who's in your house at that time. Have you talked to them and say, hey, I have this interview at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. Is there a way that maybe you can be quiet so that people can't hear you, or you're not moving around, especially if you have a small apartment or house. I have a 1-bedroom apartment, and when my boyfriend's here, we literally have the curtain for that, right? So that it's a thing where you don't see this other person moving around and getting something to eat or going to the bathroom or working out. I have that there. So you've talked to the people in your house of okay, can you all go to the park for 30 minutes? Can you all just do something so that people aren't hearing you talking and laughing? Because again, you're trying to interview and people are in the background cracking up or banging pots and pans to pain in the butt. And then, your outfit. Again, what is the outfit? Maybe it's something that you figured it out, 2 weeks before, and you've kind of tested on to make sure it looks good, to make sure this area looks good and it fits well into the screen. You don't want to be doing this, or you're up like that. You want to make sure that when you're interviewing, that all of that stuff is taken care of and you feel comfortable when you sit down, everything is good. The big thing is, gosh, please check the login the day before. Please, 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 right? I think of with Skype, you literally have to have a login. And I'm not sure about you, but I don't use Skype at all anymore. And it's the pain in the butt because you have to create an account login. And I have one, but I never remember the password. And so there's nothing more stressful if you have the login, you go to log in and it's a minute before and it's what's your password? You're sitting here digging through all your passwords to figure it out. And then you're oh my gosh, I'm getting stressed out. I'm going to be late. You're trying everything. I have to set up a new account, or you have to download the software, right? Some of the things, I think WebEx you might have to, but I'm sure Skype, you have to download Skype. And now you're freaking out because you're trying to download it. It's going mad slow. You're not sure what to do because you're going to be late for the start of it and you don't want to be late. So check all of that in before. Even if it's okay, it's a Zoom. Let me click in. Okay, it works. Everything's fine. Because the one thing you don't want is that you didn't try the link and you go to log in and it's not even the right link. And now you're trying to email someone, hey, I don't have the right link. They're maybe not checking their email. They're waiting on you. And you could have averted that when 2 days before you just checked just to make sure it was sure. And then the next thing is noise. I don't know if you can hear, but I have things going back and forth in my outside because I live in downtown. And think of what the noise is. Usually I have my earbuds, but I have to have them charged for a webinar tonight. But how can you make sure to alleviate the noise? If you live in a place that there's a lot of noise, how can you alleviate the noise? Do you need to wear headphones, earbuds? How can you make sure that you are being heard and you can hear them? because there's nothing worse that you didn't check the noise and maybe you're having to consistently wait for the fire engines to go by, and you start talking, it's like and you're like waiting, and then you start again, it's like and you're having to always keep waiting, especially if you only have a certain amount of time. So it's really important that you check the noise. It's like, is it going to be loud? Do fire alarms normally, come through? If you're in the dorm, are you going to hear your roommates and all, like whatever noise is going to be? Maybe have some headphones so that you are prepared and that you can hear them, they can hear you. Friends, on these topics, does anyone have any questions? I'm gonna give you like a minute for any questions. Also, what would you say are some of your concerns from any of these topics? Let me see, like 3 people. What's your concerns from any of these things? Oh, Sarah, yes. Finding professional clothes that is cheaper. So I will tell you, I literally interviewed all of my interviews in the same outfit. I did not care if I went to 4 different interviews and that day everyone's seeing the same thing. I think for some reason we think we have to have all this different clothing. No, ain't none of these people seeing you. I don't care if you see me in the same outfit, right? So maybe I would say, instead of looking for professional clothes that are cheaper, say I'm just gonna have one shirt and one skirt, or one shirt and one pair of slacks that are gonna fit me well and I'm gonna wear. That might be your best bet. Amazon has a really, like, a lot of stuff is returnable. So with that, I would say, like, look, buy something. If it doesn't, like, oh, it doesn't fit, return it until you find something better. They can afford it. So to me, that's a big thing, is like, don't think about you have to have a lot of clothing. Have one shirt and one top and one bottom that fit you well and that you're comfortable. Good, yes, good location, but difficult lighting. Cheryl, I think that's a great point. Again, having this little thing, let me see here. We're gonna turn off this light. Okay, and let's see how, so this gives me some more lighting without it. So thinking I have to also redo the batteries in it because they're going dead. But that would be something, is to have one of those lighting things. Also know that, like, if you have to do it from your cell phone, you have to do it from your cell phone, right? Sometimes it's like, well, I have to get in front of a computer. Look, if you got to do it from your cell phone, just make sure, the biggest thing is that you make sure that the name isn't Jen's cell phone, but just Jen Fry, right? Making sure that your name doesn't make it look like it's your cell phone, and finding a way to angle your cell phone so that it looks like a cell phone, or excuse me, it looks like a computer. What other things, friends? Let me get one more person. What about this stuff that worries you? Oh, Randy, good question. And I got some good stuff. We're going to talk about that right after this, but I got you with that. That's probably the toughest one. Okay, so no questions on that. So now we'll talk about, like, the in-person, right? And we're going to say, who knows with COVID, but just so that how to be prepared for in-person interviews, right? Who knows what's going to happen in the future, but just so you know. What questions you have right now about in-person interviews? I don't know if you've done any, but what questions do you have? No questions about in-person interviews? Ooh, good question, Sarah. How early can you arrive before it makes you look desperate? Okay. Okay, I like that one. What other questions, friends? Anything else? How to prepare yourself for questions? Perfect, Cheryl. I got something good for you with that one. What else, friends? Please ask. I don't want you, like I said, there's no dumb questions. My goal here is to help you. And there might be someone else who wants to ask you a question. So if there's 5 questions you're like, I want to ask, friggin' ask 5 questions. Like, I don't care. I want you to feel like I'm going to be prepared after this session. Okay, I'll give you about 5 more seconds. Okay, so here's some kind of things about in person, right? So the first thing, you get the email that you have an in-person interview. You need to ask who is paying. This is a huge question, right? If you are driving an hour, if you are flying an hour, you need to ask who is paying. Will you be reimbursed? The worst thing you can do is assume, and you drive 2 hours and you pay tolls and tax, and then you get there and there's no reimbursement. So I think it's really important that you ask yourself or ask them, will I be reimbursed for my travel? I've had jobs that will pay for it at the beginning and say, we will pay for everything. I've had jobs that say, we will pay everything, but you need to rent a car. I've had jobs that say, after the fact, turn in all your receipts and we'll pay you back. I've had jobs that have said, we will pay for your flight if we don't offer you the job, or you say yes, right? Okay, so I think it really is just saying, Cheryl, when they say, hey, we'd love you to come interview, and just say, hey, you know what? I live in Philadelphia. This interview's in New York. Will you be reimbursing me? You have to ask that way, and ask up front, because if they say yes, we will. These are things we need. Boom. If they say, unfortunately, Cheryl, we're not reimbursing you, then you have to decide if it's worth it to go or not. Especially if you're going to pay a large amount of money. I know people that have like flown across the country for jobs and they weren't getting reimbursed. So you really have to decide, if they're not going to reimburse you, are you still interested in it? And can you afford it? Right? If you can't afford it, then, be honest and say, hey, this is a lovely offer. I would like to do it. But right now, as a student, I just can't afford the trip XYZ. And be honest. Sometimes I might say, oh, let me see what we can help you with. If, we can pay for one way, you can pay for the other, or whatever it is. But it's really important that you're honest with them, because if you try and wait till after the fact, you just might not get reimbursed. So just asking before that, who is paying? How will I be reimbursed? Like, what will you need of me? So I think that's really important questions up front. The next thing is how are you getting there? Are you going to get there from, for bus, train, car, whatever it is? And the reason you need to ask is, if you get there, do you have to pay for parking? I think that's important. Where are you going to park? Because many times they'll give you this address of where the building is, and you have to park a half a mile away. So now you have to friggin', walk along in your heels that are already too painful to get to this job, or you're sweating, or it's pouring rain. So they should be telling you, if you're driving, like where you're going to park and where it is in relation to the job interview. Because if it's 2 miles away, that's going to be tough, especially if you're in this suit that you normally don't wear, walking over there and it's pouring rain, or it's 100 degrees out. So that's why it's important to think how you're getting there. And then again, Sarah, when you ask, how early can you arrive before it makes you look desperate? I don't think that's a fair question to ask. And I say that because you can get there 30 minutes early and be like, hey, I'm here 30 minutes early. I just didn't know how traffic was going to be. Or the train schedule here can be kind of crazy and I didn't want to miss it. So you can always explain that away of just like, I just didn't know what traffic was going to be like. I didn't know what parking was going to be like. I didn't know what all these other things can be like. So I wanted to get there early. And it's really important that you check on that, right? Make sure you map quest it out. Many times, people will be like, oh, I know where that's at, or I think I do. And they won't map quest it, and it'll be like 20 minutes like later than what they thought. I remember I was going to a job interview and I left too late and I got there like 10 minutes and I was sprinting, hitting the elevator. I got there like 10 minutes late. And so think of how that already makes you look. So you want to make sure that you've mapped it out, you know where to park, you've kind of done the map of, okay, where's the entrance at, all of those things to prepare yourself. Because it's really important that you're doing this so that you are, again, not anxious, you are comfortable. The worst thing you can do is you arrive not comfortable, you're stressed out, you're anxious, and you're trying to put on, your smiling face for a job interview. So Sarah, to answer your question, it would literally be, it don't matter. And then if you do arrive an hour early, find a coffee place, find a little bench, and you can just work on stuff, right? That's the easiest thing to do. Because then that way you're prepared, you've went over your questions, you've done all of that stuff. And the next thing is sometimes you don't know how long these interviews are going to be. So, or excuse me, let me see here. Oh, I forgot outfit. So your outfit, so shoes, wear shoes that are comfortable, right? So many times people want to wear these high heels they've never worn before. They're getting blisters. People want to walk them up and down the building, have them meet everyone, and now their feet are killing them. Oh, welcome. Here's Fish, the animal, like I told you about. But wear shoes that are comfortable, right? Wear I have heels that are maybe like an inch, right? Half an inch high, and they are comfortable for me to wear for long periods of time. So think about that. Find some comfortable shoes. If you're not used to wearing high heels, then wear a nice set of flats. Whatever you're going to wear is going to be comfortable. That's important. Hair, what is going to be comfortable for you? There came to be a time where I just thought I will never straighten my hair. I can't even think of a time that I will straighten it. Excuse me, because this is the afro you're getting, right? And so you have to think about what's comfortable for you. Is your natural hair comfortable? Have you never straightened your hair? Have you never worn, hair extensions or a weave? Then this is not the time to start testing stuff out, right? Do you have natural hair, but for this interview, you're going to straighten it? And now you happen to get caught in some flooding and your hair is all crazy looking because you wanted to straighten it for the first time, right? If you wear it pulled back a lot, then wear it pulled back. Wear whatever is comfortable for you. Because so many times people want to try something different. I'm like, but this ain't the time. This is not. When we talk about suit or no suit, again, what's comfortable? If you have a nice fitting shirt and some nice slacks, wear that. If you're not used to wearing a suit, I feel like there's nothing worse than wearing an overly baggy suit that you feel really uncomfortable with, or a really, really tight suit. And again, you feel uncomfortable with that. So, that to me is your outfits, your comfort level is going to make or break you. So that's really important. What is comfortable to you? The next thing is your food. So like I said, you might not know how long the interview is. So I'd say the day before, have a bag that you're going to use, maybe a nice briefcase or something. And you put, even a backpack. Who am I kidding? Briefcases are money. So maybe even a backpack. And in that backpack, you put just some bars, you put a bottle of water, stuff so that you have something to drink. Because there's nothing worse when you're talking, all of a sudden you have to cough, or all of a sudden you have a dry mouth and you don't have anything to drink and people are trying to hunt to find you something to drink. So have some bars in there so that if you go to the bathroom, you can just shove one in your mouth if you're starving. I've done that before. Or you have a bottle of water to drink. So those are things to think about. If you do, I have my little canteen right here. If you do have one, make sure it's tight. Don't be the person that it's half tight and you go and your backpack is now a pool because it's got all the water from your canteens in there. So make sure that you've tightened it when you put it in there, right? And then miscellaneous, like some people want to bring resumes, in case the people who you're interviewing with haven't seen them. I mean, that's fine. I would also say bring a notepad and multiple pens, right? Just so you have things to write on and something to write with. So then that way you have kind of the questions you want to ask. You can write down people's names. You can do all of that stuff. Okay, friends, what questions do you have off of this in-person stuff? Professionalism versus business casual. So I would say like it depends on the job you're interviewing for, right? If you're interviewing for like, I don't know, a facilities job or something like that, I mean, wear khakis. I think it really depends. I'm a big proponent. I just like the look of how things look ironed. Some people don't iron stuff. I just don't think it looks good, right? Like the pants like suck to your leg and things like that. So I would just say like make sure like the iron stuff, it just looks better. I hate to say, I don't want to say more professional, just better, but professionalism versus business casual. And I also think you can even ask, like, what would be the dress code for this? If you have any questions, if it's like a different type of organization, if you're going to interview, I don't know, like at an animal conservatory, ask what would be appropriate for it. What type of footwear would be appropriate? Because you don't want to be in like interviewing at some animal conservatory in heels, and you're walking outside and your heels keep going into the ground. So just like, I don't think it would hurt to ask. Yeah, Haley, exactly. Like, can you just kind of tell me what interview this is so I just know? Will we be walking around a lot? I think of some of the interviews I've had, and they have walked me around, and my feet, I've been like, oh, my feet are killing me, right? And I didn't think so. Maybe ask that, right? Ask that question, are we going to be doing a lot of walking around, just so I make sure I have the right footwear? Oh, sorry, Sarah, I just saw you're going to answer this live, or maybe I was going to. Maybe, yeah, that's me. So the question Haley asked is that, should you ask for the dress, ask what the dress code is for the interview? And yes, especially if it's something that's just a little different. If you're going to like interview a marine biologist thing, you might just want to ask what the dress code is. I think of when I would interview for assistant coaching positions, I would ask them, am I going to run a practice? So I know to bring t-shirt, running shorts, shoes, and the things I need to run a practice. So that type of stuff. So good question. Oh, let me back up there. What other questions do we have on this, friends? Is it okay to be on your phone while waiting to be called back for the interview? I think it depends on like, Sarah, do you mean like, hey, what's going on, friend? Like that type of on your phone, or like just scrolling on your phone? Which one do you mean? Scrolling. Yeah, I think that's fine, right? If you're just sitting there doing this, I think it's fine, right? You don't want to sit there and you've been there for like 20 minutes and all you're doing is this. So yeah, if you're sitting there on your phone, you have like your paperwork and all of that stuff, and you're like just looking on your phone, I don't think that hurts you at all. So nuh-uh. Yeah, what other questions, friends? Anything else for in person? Okay, perfect. We got about 20 more minutes. Sweet. Okay, here's question. So this is going to help with Cheryl and Randy. Okay, so here are the questions to answer and ask. Okay, so the first one, you majority of the time are going to get this question. Why do you want this job? And this one, for me, I think is really important how you answer it. You want to make sure that you are very succinct with all of your questions. I have a tendency to ramble on and on and on. So you want, like, I want you, if you're taking notes, I want you to write the word succinct, right? You are going to answer it and that's it. Okay. And so literally have a journal, have something. And so why do you want this job? I think it's really important that you have researched the company and you are going to add in your information about why you want this job, and do it like I usually do, 3 or 4 bullet points. That's it. And I write down my bullet points in my notes, right? And I will tell them, let me look at my notes. So there are 4 reasons why I would like this job. First, I've looked at your mission, and your mission statement is about social activism with dolphins. And I have been a big proponent through my life that we need to take care of dolphins, because I've looked at the data, and the data says that dolphins are going to be extinct in 5 years. So I completely agree with why you feel like we should be activists for dolphins. Number 2, you said you are embedding diversity and culture within your organization. And I think that's really important, especially if we look at the climate now, because as we know, 80% of CEOs are white, and 29% of, CEOs are women. And so to me, it's really important that we look at this, this, and this. And question number 3, I've looked at your website and I see, and so that's how you want to make sure you are writing down and you have those notes. How much can you write in your notes pre-interview before the interview thinks you're reading straight from your notes to all their answers? I mean, honestly, whenever I would interview, I would write down my 4 data points. Or my 4 points. I am not literally reading it word for word. I'm not like, number 1, I think that blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm not doing it, but what I'm doing is I have like 1 and maybe a few words that allow me to know what I need to say. Number 2, a few words. So you're not writing out your whole answer, because what if the question is different than what you wrote out, right? So you're writing out just enough to give you an idea of each of your bullet points, why you want the job, and how it meshes with their mission statement or whatever it is on their website, and your experience. Let me see here. Oh, that's still the same one. I don't know how to answer that one. Okay. So yeah, so just literally, I don't see a problem with you preparing, that you have even wrote down some data and information from their website, right? Because now I know you've done your research. Like that, I didn't put that here, but like you need to have done your research. Never, ever, ever go in to a job interview and you haven't done your research, right? Because their first question might be, so what do you think of our most recent blah, blah, blah statement? And if you haven't even been to their website, you're done, right? So you want to have written down some data, some information written about the CEO, like just you have some notes on stuff, right? So any questions about that first one? I'm going to kind of slow it down. So if you have any questions about each one, we can chat about it. So what questions do you have about why do you want this job? None? Okay. So then the next one, tell me about yourself. This one tends to be the hardest one, and people tend to ramble on and want to tell life stories because their question usually is, how much do I tell? It depends on the job, but you want to have key points that you're always going to pull out. I helped a young lady with interview prep who was interviewing for like the director of first year experience. And so the way we talked about it was that she started with, I was a first gen student. My parents didn't go to high school. And I didn't really understand the whole, or my parents didn't go to college. I didn't understand this whole search, the whole college search. I go to school and I don't have any clue about the first year experience, what it even means. And I don't have anyone to ask. And so that's how she started off talking about the tell me about yourself. But you want to make sure that the tell me about yourself also leads back to the job at hand. right? So you're kind of weaving in your experiences that you know fit this job, and can give them a bigger picture about yourself. And I also tell people, like, be honest. If you're a funny person, add some humor in, right? Don't think you have to take away who you are in order for them to want you. Like, be who you are. When I would interview, it's really funny. So Army Navy is this huge football game. Like, the Army Navy game is humongous. And it's the most awesome experience, right? And so when you walk around, people are yelling, "Go Army, beat Navy." Like, people are always saying that. And so when I interviewed at Duke, and this was like a big chance. So I'd researched everyone who was on the interview, right? And so what I did was, one of the guys, he was in the Navy. And so when we get to him, he introduces himself. I'm like, "Oh, thank you, so-and-so. Also, go Army, beat Navy." And he just looks at me, and I look at him, and then the woman calling, who's a friend of mine, she starts cracking up. And like, if you're funny, like, add some humor, show your personality, right? But making sure that you're like getting them to see who you are and how this all weaves in. You don't want to tell this 2-hour story about you and none of it is relevant, right? Make sure this stuff is relevant. And like those, you have to practice stuff. Find a friend, show her the job description, and answer these questions, right? The job description is an intern somewhere. And literally have her ask you these. "Okay, so Sarah, so why do you want this job?" And you're going to have to go through it a few times to get your words, to get your flow. "So tell me about yourself." Get your words, get your flow, right? So that's really important. The next one, also I forgot, when you're doing these interviews via online, make sure you take down the notes and the names of people who are interviewing you, right? So then you're like, "Okay, it's Sarah, Joan." And so then when someone asks, you can be like, "Thank you, Sarah. And here's the answer," and even if you need to say, "Okay, I didn't catch your name. What was it?" Okay, boom. So yeah. "Okay, is this question referencing your personal and private, or professional and personal life?" It's both, right? So that's why you have to make sure you pull out pieces so that you are not rambling on about your professional life and you only give a minute or a second of your professional life. Yeah, you're rambling on about personal, you don't give enough about professional. So this is why you have to learn to be succinct. They want both. Where'd you go to school, something that ties you to this job, and then maybe some stuff in your current professional. So both, but you want to practice it so it's very succinct. I mean, I've been on interviews. I was on a 30-minute interview, and the guy took like 12 minutes talking about tell me about yourself. And I'm like, we're not going to get to the rest of the questions. So you want it to be succinct, and you pull from both pieces. Any other questions, friends? So Cheryl, here's an interesting thing. You want to reiterate it. So many people, they want to assume, that your cover letter is different from your resume, from what you tell them. No, I will tell you from being on search committees, some people only read the cover letter. Some people only read the resume. Some people don't read either of them and just ask you questions, right? So you want to kind of, and literally when we get the resumes, I mean, I've been on search committees, I haven't even looked at the resumes. I'm gonna be honest. And that's how some of them, like, you might get 10 resumes and you just don't have the time. Or literally right before your resume, or right before your interview, I'm like, let me look through her resume a little bit. So you're assuming that everyone has read your resumes. No, right? And so it might be that they ask you a question and it's something on your resume, you can elaborate, right? And don't say, "Well, as you've seen with my resume," don't say that. Just say, "Oh, great question." And you just talk about it. You don't want to assume that anyone has read your resume or anything. Don't assume that. And so the question, yeah, so I think that's it. Good questions. Anyone have any other questions? Those are excellent ones. How much time do we have left? Okay. Oh, we have 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Woo, this went fast. So yeah, so just make sure what stuff you're telling that you're not assuming people have read your resume. And if they have, then you'll just add more details that weren't on there. When they, ask strengths and weaknesses, you want to usually have 3 of each. and, think about what they are. Your strengths are, I'm a people person. I love to make connections. I like to have big picture ideas. Like, what are your strengths? And also think about your weaknesses. Sometimes it might be, I sometimes get too focused on the small details and not the bigger picture, right? Or I'm learning how to delegate more. Like, those are really good kind of weaknesses or strengths to ask about. Anyone have any questions on those? How do you avoid about disguising strengths as your weaknesses? Can you elaborate a little bit more, Cheryl? That's interesting.
Yeah, so like I had at times where people tell me like don't don't talk about like your strength as in like a way that they're a weakness, like perfectionism. Like if someone was a perfectionist, like that could be someone's weakness, but then it could also be someone's strength. So how do you avoid like mixing them up? Or
I
like
think, yeah, that's a great question, Cheryl. I think it literally is like so many times we don't want to bother friends about this, but like maybe say, hey, Sarah, how about we meet for an hour and you do interview prep and I do interview prep. So we're both interviewing, prepping, and kind of talking about what we need to say. And so if you do like, well, perfectionism, because that's a hard strength, because if you tell me your perfectionism is a strength, I'm worried that things will be bottlenecked with you, right? And now we can't, because you need to make sure they're perfect. Versus saying, I get focused too much in the details. That can be a weakness, that people can understand. And you say, I get focused in the details, but I'm trying to figure out how to look more of a bigger picture. So that can be something you say. Another thing is when talking about conflict. So many times, when in regards to conflict, people like don't want to say, I had this conflict with someone, and this is what happened. So they'll be like, I just never have had conflict, and the person's like, okay, BS, right? So then you don't know how to handle conflict. Versus saying, this is the conflict, this is what occurred, this is how we handled it, this is the end result. If you Google, I can't remember, it's like the STARS method. Google that. That will tell you how to talk about conflict in interviewing. It's a STARS method, STAR. It will tell you. But like you're going to have a conflict. And if you tell me you don't, then I'm not sure how you're going to be able to handle it. Also have in mind the conflict with a superior, a coworker, and someone you supervised. So that if they say, well, tell me a time that you had a conflict with a coworker, you got one. One with a supervisor, one with someone you supervise. So have those in your mind that you've thought them out, so that when they ask, you're not sitting here for 10 minutes trying to think of something and you just don't have anything of substance. So have those three things. I had conflict with my supervisor, someone I supervised, and a coworker. And then you can throw them out. Now when we get to the questions at hand, I think this goes back to how much time, right? Is this the first interview that's 30 minutes long? Is this like you need to know, because your questions and answers need to be succinct with it. And so you have to also think, if this is the first interview, I want to hold some questions back for the final interview, right? And so some things I like to ask, is there anything on my resume that concerns you or you would like me to elaborate on? To me, that's always a really good one, because for me, when I was in coaching, we went job to job to job. You could move every year. And when I said that, they were like, well, actually, we noticed this. And I was able to explain it. And they're like, okay, we understand. So that's a good question. Asking their time, what's your time frame on this? What are next steps? And so I think it depends on the position of what questions you want to ask and to whom. If you ask some questions and you see people kind of doing this, especially if you ask about D&I or conflict, that might be troublesome. I just noticed it's literally 6:59, so we are done. What to bring? Like I said, bring a backpack, whatever it is to put your stuff in, but don't be afraid. Like, I'll bring a backpack to things now. I don't care. If you want to print off resumes, do that. Bring water, bring food, bring tissue, maybe a set of contacts, pens, a notepad to jot stuff down. Those are good things to bring. Like this has gone by so fast. What other questions do you have, friends, before we're done? Let me see here. What if you've never had conflict with a supervisor? And that's a question. I feel like we've all had some type of, and conflict doesn't have to be like boom, boom. It has to be like, we had difference of opinions, or I thought I wanted to do this, but she wanted me to do that, or I wanted to spend this on the budget. Like there's always small things that maybe don't look as confrontational, but can still be conflict. So thank you. Here is information to follow me if you're like, I want to follow Jen Fry. What's going on with her? Here's my information. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this. Sarah, that's all I got for you, friends.
Thank you very much. I already took some of your advice. I currently live in a house full of musicians, so I plugged some headphones in so that I just have my microphone right here.
Good.
So thank you very much for coming to speak at Love Conference. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you.